Hello, my name is Matt Bickey, and I'm a longtime horse player and handicapper. And this past Saturday on Breeders' Cup Day, I won the big money game at horsetourneys.com. And after that happened, a lot of my friends and acquaintances contacted me and asked how I found some of the horses I found with the software that I use. And rather than walk each of them through it, I thought I'd just make a video and share it with all of you. So, in 3, 2, 1. Let's look at Betmix. Betmix began as a simple slider tool that allowed the user to pick various handicapping factors like speed, form, earnings, pace, pedigree, class, trainer, jockey, and weight them accordingly so that you would wind up with a numeric value that pointed toward contenders in the race. This was a very elegant and quick way to handicap whole cards. But eventually the program evolved and moved into big data. And we're going to be looking at two of the modules that came along later, Angler and Bird Dog.
Lister, then got Stormy. Glass Slippers is coming through. Got Stormy on the outside. Late run from Extravagant Kid. Glass Slippers and Linster 1-2 down to the line. Glass Slippers in front. Late charge for Wet Your Whistle. It is Glass Slippers to win the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
So, how did I find Glass Slippers? Well, I found her by using Angler, the super powerful database part of Betmix, which sort of powers everything in the software. It allows you to pick any number of factors to examine to find various horses that will be contenders in races. For the purposes of brevity, I'm not going to go through how I found out a lot of the things I'm about to show you, but rest assured I used Angler to find out all these facts. So when we got the data midweek last week, the first thing I did was go and build an angle. So we chose the surface of turf, and we went and we got all of October, November, going all the way back. Then we go and select only tracks that have hosted a Breeders' Cup since 2015. We set every purse to 1 million or over because that's every Breeders' Cup race. Winners almost always have won a grade 1 prior to the Breeders' Cup race. We go to finish. We only want to see horses that finished 4th or better in their last out. Winners on Breeders' Cup turf tend to be younger horses, so we want to see horses between the ages of 3 and 5. A high percentage of turf winners are within 90 days of their last win, and frequently they've had 19 starts or less. Again, all these pieces of information came from lots of research done with Angler. So what we've done here is create a bunch of parameters that allow us to winnow away horses that won't have any chance to win. So once you've built an angle, which is all these bubbles right here comprise the angle, you can then save it. And of course this is what I did midweek last week, so if I go up here and go to Angler, you'll see that when I hit load angles, there's BC Turf Contenders right there. I bring it up, and it's the angle that led me to Glass Slippers. So here is where the program becomes really powerful. I've built the angle, I've loaded the angle, now I run the angle. So you see Angler has brought back all the contenders on turf for the entire series of Breeders' Cup races, and you'll notice that the only qualifier in race 5 was Glass Slippers. And so when I see an only qualifier, that's who I take.
It is Rushing Fall, Mean Mary, O'Daria, Harvey's Old Goya, Lady Prancelot. Here comes O'Daria with another try on the outside. Rushing Fall, O'Daria just would not quit and gets up to win it for Pierre-Charles Boudot.
So in previous years, I've been quite trusting of the Breeders' Cup contender angles, as they have hit at a very high percentage of finding horses that will win. So you'll see several races have many contenders. Last race, of course, Glass Slippers was the lone qualifier. That makes it pretty easy. But in this case, we have several contenders in race 7, of which Aldira is one. So we had to take this list of potential winners and narrow it down. So you'll see that there were only 6 qualifiers from this rather large field. And because I am so trusting of the angle, I'll show you what I used that information for in Bird Dog. What is Bird Dog? Well, it's an incredibly customizable bit of software that's powered by the database that runs Angler. It's comprised of the main horse table, a factor statistics box, which is totally customizable and incidentally is where all of the sliders landed from the original product. There's also a handicapping overview section that can do quite a bit of handicapping for you very quickly by weighting various factors and presenting them in mixes that are already made. Also, there's a mix bot that will do some machine learning and build you mixes that point toward winners in various price classifications. Seriously, I could spend a good couple hours just going over things that are in Bird Dog, such as the X-ray feature or the bomb button or the Bird Dog analysis box. So here's how we found Aldira. We knew from our angler list that only 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13 were going to be able to win based on factors that we believe point to contenders. So what do? We go through and we eliminate everybody who's not 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. You have to remember at this point, I was pretty far back in the contest. So I'm looking at the 6 horses that I think can win, and I'm noticing that Rushing Fall is a prohibitive favorite. And in terms of game theory, that represented kind of a bad choice. So it really became a decision between 10, 11, and 9 here. And all of them fit on the criteria of having won a grade or group 1. But you'll notice Aldira was the only one receiving first-time Lasix. And looking at her win 2 back, I just thought she was the play. I know, first-time Lasix seems a bit pedestrian. There were a couple other things involving average last 3 purse and something else. I can't give you all my secrets.
What a day in the career of this 7-year-old. Whitmore, Aaron Ortiz Jr. have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint in 1 minute, 8.61 seconds.
As I mentioned earlier, Betmix is comprised of several different modules, and within each module are some quite powerful tools that can be used all on their own. For instance, we have the PP view, which is past performances view. I know of other Betmix users that use just this part of the product, and if you're coming straight from paper handicapping, where you're used to the form, this is going to be very familiar to you. You'll notice it has these groupings of sliders. What these allow you to do is sort the information very, very quickly. Here's how I like to use PP View and how I used it to find Whitmore. First things first, we want to talk about horses that are running within the last calendar year. And then we also want to look at the conditions for today's race. So 6 furlongs on dirt. So 6 furlongs on dirt. And then lots of trial and error through the years have led me to believe that setting the class level to within 7 of today's number is pretty powerful. So you can see with these parameters set on the sliders, Whitmore was obviously a strong contender. I should mention that when you do all these things up here, you get an average of whatever's on the screen by speed figure. You can also decide to look at E1, E2, late pace, and class. But I really favor the speed numbers, especially in classy races. You'll see that this race to me really came down to 3 horses, 5, 7, or 8. And since I've always loved Whitmore, because right here, one of these 2 keyed a big day for me, he was my choice.
Classic hanging tough in the final furlong and leads it by 2.5 lengths. Improbable, then Global Campaign, Tacitus, Tis the Law, all behind Authentic, who strides away in the Keeneland sunset for John Velasquez. Authentic has won the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic.
As with everything at Keeneland, Kurt Becker is just the best. So the trouble with a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic is there's just not a lot of them. You can see looking at the factor statistics box here that data is only being pulled from one race, which pushed me to go back to using Angler. So what I did is what I did before. I went back and got all the months of data that I could that would have involved a Breeders' Cup Classic, and of course it brought us back 8 versions of it, the last 8. Granted, a small sample size, but better than nothing. I should mention that the 8 we just saw included this year's Breeders' Cup, so what I had open simultaneous to this was the last 7 iterations of the Breeders' Cup, and I happened to notice as I looked across those 7 that the winner of each of the classics had been either first or second in score. Well, what is score? It is a weighted factor that takes into account the last finish, lengths behind, speed last race, and class number of every horse in the race. And it is what orders the horses as they're imported for the first time when you open a race in the main horse table. So first or second in score rank is pretty strong. I went back to Angler and I set it for just that parameter. And it brought back every winner of the last 7 years. But I wanted to see if I could tighten it a little bit. So I go up into this box here and I hit Analyze Winners. It's pulling all the data that it can from the server, and then it brings you back some really interesting stuff. This is all categories related to the 7 winners that we are looking at. So we see that right here, if you're not first or second in last finish in those 7, you don't win. So we go back over to our Open Breeders' Cup Classic and Bird Dog, and we see that both of the top 2 have finished first or second in their last race, so that doesn't help us. If you'll notice that when we sort by 5th, we get a whole block of bread right here. You find that you get several categories right here where the top 4 of a category were represented in those 7 winners. So I believe what I favored that day were the pace numbers. So we go back over to Bird Dog and we go and we look in the factor box, average last 3 E2, average last 3 E1, 10, 9, 2. So we knew we were between the 8 improbable and the 9 authentic, and that is how we wound up picking the winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic, which made for a pretty memorable Saturday. A wonderful Breeders' Cup. I do want you guys to know that I've used these same processes on lots of other days and whiffed. That's just the fickle nature of this game. But on this particular day, the structural dynamics of flow were with me. Lastly, I know this wasn't timely. It's been a few weeks now since the Breeders' Cup. It took me some time to piece all this together. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I cannot recommend Betmix highly enough. It changed my game as a handicapper, and I think it can do the same for just about anybody. See you at the track, or more likely, a contest room online.